Okay. I can start a little early, I think. Oh, I haven't worn this hat for a very long time. It's not in the greatest of shape. Hello, everyone. Hi, Books, Booze, Brews, and Booze crew. The Brew crew. That's nice. I like it. I'm sorry you came to a black screen. I don't really have the stream elements set up to first time you've been early in your life, Books. Oh boy. Yes, I think everybody here is probably proud of you. Pharma says me, although I'm not sure for what. Hmm. Oh, I must have moved the camera at some point. Dino is slightly out of frame. Yeah, well, he's got more of a wizardy hat. Um, for anyone that's actually read some of Discworld, you can see it's very clearly wizard. But I figured it was close enough. And that got the camera all out of focus. I'll see y'all. To do something, should you accept? Do you trust the person to follow through? It's all out of focus. I don't know what I got to do with this camera to stop it from doing this. I'm gonna try and get it to refocus. Hello, is that good enough? Back here, camera. No, that didn't do it. Oh well. Maybe it'll focus on the puppy. Look at this guy. He's way out of focus. Camera, look at him. He's way more important. Look at that tail going. Not at all. Zero trust. I don't know. I guess then it depends on how much effort exactly is required. Puppy wants a treat. He's doing the like hesitant wag wag of, am I gonna get a treat? Of course. I gotta get this to focus. I'm sorry the camera's out of focus. I don't know what's going on. Camera, look way over here. Oh, there we go. It worked this time. Look at that pup. Happy Nightmare says, I like how the wizard label tells us exactly what it is. Reduces ambiguity. Yes. If you haven't read any Discworld novels, there is a wizard named by the name of Rincewind that was the primary protagonist of the very first Discworld novel. Isn't he? Look at that guy. His name, the puppy's name is Bin Binnakegabinik, or Binnabic for short, or Bin for really short. Hey, Bin? You did not tell them what I was reading. Oh, well. Speaking of Discworld, this is going to be the second Discworld novel that I have read on this channel. Don't worry, it's not required to have read any previous ones. They're episodic, mostly. There is character development throughout them, but this is kind of what you could consider the beginning of the Witches series. Wyrd Sisters by Sir Terry Pratchett. Yeah. Technically, there is one book that kind of came before this one that introduced one of the characters. The book is titled Equal Rights, Rites, which features Granny Weatherwax. But she's really there is one other character in there that won't come back to the series for quite a long time, and otherwise the other characters from this series don't really feature in it. I wouldn't consider it required to read before this book. What is that? Witch cackle. Oh, I see. It's a witch face. Nice, nice. Actually, that is that the that's the Disney What? Sleeping Beauty witch? Kind of looks like. Happy Nightmares was told to read those a week or two ago, but finals, yeah, fine. Oh, Snow White, right, Snow White. Finals are definitely a priority. What are you going to school for? But I mean, you know, good luck with your finals if you've still got some to go. I have not yet seen the Sharkies. I don't think they're here quite yet, but I did start a little early, so I'm sure they'll be here soon. Robakio, hey, how's it going? I have not started yet. We're gonna read this. We're gonna start this book. Robakio, have you read this one? I know you read some of the Guard series, but I don't know how many Discworld novels you've actually read. Took a bit to remember your password. It's been a little... Hey, there's the Sharkies. We're here, we're here. Hey, welcome. Resident scholar and scientist is Happy Nightmares. Nice. Well, I don't know whether or not our friend Ereker is going to be here tonight. I don't know if this hat is going to last. It does not fit great on top of my hair. You've read it? Great. You read the other one I meant. Oh, you read Equal Rights. And one after this. Oh, you've read 3 of the Witches series. Very nice. What's the next one? Is it Witches Abroad? Does Witches Abroad come after this one? Or Lords and Ladies? Lords and Ladies is a witches book, right? This is early enough in the series that they're all just kind of all the titles are together. Sharky's wishes they could be a resident anything, likely usually the resident mom in many groups. Abroad rings a bell. They went traveling. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that would definitely be Witches Abroad. Assuming Lords and Ladies, they go to a castle, I believe, and you might remember elves, from what I'm remembering. It's been a little while. Oh, Lords and Ladies is after Masquerade. Is Masquerade also witches? Yeah, Masquerade is in there. Man, it's been a while, and this book doesn't give me the best. Books, Brews, and Brews says, I am always in need of additional moms. Farmers is thinking Carpe Jugulum. So, I was saying, I don't know if Ereker is going to be here tonight, and if she does show up, I'll need to revisit this. But my friend Ereker, who has been on the channel occasionally, has come and visited, made me a very lovely mug featuring a certain door that everybody might recognize, a certain dragon that everybody might recognize. This is my favorite. For some reason, this is my favorite illustration of Smaug. I don't know, like, it's not super detailed or anything. Not saying Ereker's version, but the original of this, which Ereker's version has made it onto ceramic in a very lovely fashion. Like, this looks so accurate to me. Sharky say, it's gorgeous. And then this, on this side, we have, I don't know how well this is going to come across on camera, but this is the front gate of the Lonely Mountain. So you've got the cave entrance, the gate itself there with the smoke billowing out. We've got kind of a stream coming down here out of the entrance because there is a stream flowing out. And then on this side we've got a tree and just some striations in rock over here. Boss Waffle says hello. Hey Boss Waffle, if I am guessing correctly, I think Boss Waffle might be one of the Dark Rapture crew, a project that I'm potentially involved with. I'm involved with, but I haven't really done anything to help them out yet. And Mini Cake's here. What? Mini Cake 97? First time chat. I am confused, Mini Cake. What happened? Why is this a different Mini Cake? Did something happen with your account? Did you have to recreate? Sharky say we have a poster of the Hobbit on your wall, and the negative space makes that illustration of Smaug. Smaug. Yeah, I love this this particular one. I've got it. Let me see. You're just on your phone? I see. I don't know if this is going to come across, but this is my wallet that Farmos actually got for me. And it's kind of got an etching, if I get it in the light properly. Boss Waffle says mini cake actually recommended. Oh, okay. Well, welcome. Then I was mistaken. I saw that you had followed like shortly after I had mentioned tonight's stream in a chat channel for the Dark Rapture thing. So I kind of made an incorrect assumption. I apologize. Boss Waffle's your bestie. Well, welcome aboard. So yeah, I love that illustration. As you can see, I now have multiple physical effects. Ooh, I feel like I'm gonna get warm because it's starting to get a little warmer, and I'm wearing, as we'll learn in this book, it's very important to wear black. So I put on my robes, even though they've got purple on the inside. Normally the purple's on the outside. It's the best I could do. You love the hat? Yeah, I haven't worn this hat for years, and it's kind of sitting on top of my hair right now. It fits a little better when my hair is much shorter than it currently is. I also kind of just have a big head in the first place, so hats and I don't typically get along very well. But it was the closest to a witchy hat I could find, not counting this one here. And this one's got the point, but it's the wrong color. Mini cake, we are going to read Wyrd Sisters by Sir Terry Pratchett. It's arguably the first book in the Witches series of books. You could also consider Equal Rights to be Equal Rights comes before this one, but it doesn't feature many of the witch characters. Basically one or two, depending on how you count them. But the second one won't show up for a very long time, not in this book. And so, I don't know, I kind of consider that this is a good starting place for the Witches series. Boss Waffle's gonna head out. You're not gonna stick around for the book. All right, well, thank you for dropping by. Hopefully we'll catch you next time. I do this every Wednesday and Friday, assuming that nothing interferes. And I try to let people know ahead of time if something is gonna come up. So, the day after tomorrow, I will be here at the same time. Mini Cake says, we went with that after all, yay! Happy Nightmare says, everyone's good at something and group moms are important. That's true. I think that I have seen people in my life who are moms get down on themselves for feeling like that's their sole purpose or anything like that, as if that's a small thing in the first place, which it's absolutely not. And I don't think that also needs to be your whole, like your sole definition. I don't know. But even if it is, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. Like, that's very important to be mom. Sharky say Equal Rights is the first witch book. Oh, Equal Rights is the first witch book. Wyrd Sisters is the first witches. Yeah, that holds up. That makes sense. Robot Q agrees. That's a good definition. Oh, and so does Farmos. Boss Waffle says, sorry I'm leaving so early. I'll definitely stick around next time. Well, if you want to catch up on anything, I do post all of my streams up on YouTube afterwards. So if you want to catch up on the beginning of a book or anything like that, you can always check it out there. On that note, wait, before you leave, if you have time, let me read the very beginning. Let's start the book, shall we? I did read this paragraph last stream, but just as a taste, so I'll reread it. All right, Wyrd Sisters, everyone. The wind howled. Lightning stabbed at the earth erratically, like an inefficient assassin. Thunder rolled back and forth across the dark, rain-lashed hills. The night was as black as the inside of a cat. It was the kind of night, you could believe, on which gods moved men as though they were pawns on the chessboard of fate. In the middle of this elemental storm, a fire gleamed among the dripping furze bushes like the madness in a weasel's eye. It illuminated 3 hunched figures. As the cauldron bubbled, an eldritch voice shrieked, "When shall we 3 meet again?" There was a pause. Finally, another voice said, in far more ordinary tones, "Well, I can do next Tuesday." I love that. I think that's like just... I feel like it's such a good introduction. It sets your expectations for this book so well. There's just like, it sets the tone perfectly, I think. Happy Nightmare says, "It was a dark and stormy night, done oh so right." Just there's like 3 iconic lines, four iconic lines in there. We've got the lightning stabbed at the earth erratically like an inefficient assassin. The night was as black as the inside of a cat. The fire gleamed among the dripping furze bushes like the madness in a weasel's eye. And of course I can do next Tuesday. Casual brunch convo. Yeah, it's such a great opener for the book. Sir Terry, I've noticed the on which gods moved men as though they were pawns on the chessboard of fate. The Discworld novels love to throw in bits like that, you know, comparing the characters to characters in a role-playing game that the gods are playing or something like that. You know, this time it says chessboard, but sometimes they're rolling dice and things of that nature. It rolled a 6. Sharky say, there are literary awards given to authors for the first line in their novels, and it's named after the man who first wrote "It was a dark and stormy night." Cool. That's great. Yeah, there are definitely... I've seen that as a, I think as a Jeopardy category. Jeopardy category. First lines in books where they just... The answer is the first line of a book, and then the question is the title. There are definitely some iconic ones, like very much so. And I mean, you know, sometimes those are just going to be classics in one sense or another, but, you know, the intro to The Hobbit is always going to be memorable for me. This one is just... I mean, this one, the first line is "The wind howled." That doesn't stand out as much, but everything that comes after it, the first paragraph for this, is fantastic. Sharky say, named after Edward Bulwer Lytton. All right. The BC town of Lytton was also named after him. Oh, Lytton BC's had some problems. My stepfather drives a pilot truck, and I believe some of his recent trips have been to transport pre-built houses up to Lytton. I think they're doing sort of convoys of taking houses back up there. All right. Well, why don't I read a little further now that I've had a quite long digression here. I'll try to keep up with the chat occasionally, but if I miss somebody's post, I'm sorry. Can't read 2 places at once. All right. Through the fathomless deeps of space swims the star turtle, great Atuin, bearing on its back the 4 giant elephants, who carry on their shoulders the mass of the Discworld. A tiny sun and moon spin around them on a complicated orbit to induce seasons, so probably nowhere else in the multiverse is it sometimes necessary for an elephant to cock a leg to allow the sun to go past. Exactly why this should be may never be known. Possibly the creator of the universe got bored with all the usual business of axial inclination, albedos, and rotational velocities, and decided to have a bit of fun for once. It would be a pretty good bet that the gods of a world like this probably do not play chess. And indeed, this is the case. Well, there we go. I was just talking about that. In fact, no gods anywhere play chess. They haven't got the imagination. Gods prefer simple, vicious games, where you do not achieve transcendence, but go straight to oblivion. A key to the understanding of all religion is that a god's idea of amusement is snakes and ladders with greased rungs. Depending on how you look at it, a good or bad thing about me reading Sir Terry instead of David Eddings is that I'm going to be laughing a lot more frequently. Not that there aren't funny moments in David Eddings or J.R.R. Tolkien or whatever, the previous authors I've read here, but I'm not going to be laughing as frequently reading those as I am here. Happy Nightmare says, oh, he's Canadian. Yes, I am in the region of Vancouver, British Columbia, which is why I'm on Pacific Standard Time when I talk times. So it's just about 7:20 here. But yeah, so that's where I am. You're most definitely here for the laughter too. Oh, Bulwer Lytton. I see. Anyways, going back to where was I? Sharky say Bulwer Lytton might have been British. Magic glues the Discworld together. Magic generated by the turning of the world itself. Magic wound like silk out of the underlying structure of existence to suture the wounds of reality. That's an interesting sentence. Minicake says it's almost midnight here. Minicake is way over on the other side of the country. I imagine that's why your bestie had to take off, unfortunately. A lot of it ends up, a lot of the magic, since I interrupted myself there, a lot of the magic ends up in the Round Top Mountains, which stretch from the frozen lands near the hub all the way, via a lengthy archipelago, to the warm seas which flow endlessly into space over the rim. Raw magic crackles invisibly from peak to peak and earths itself in the mountains. It is the Ramtops that supply the world with most of its witches and wizards. In the Ramtops, the leaves on the trees move even when there is no breeze. Rocks go for a stroll of an evening. Even the land, at times, seems alive. And so, at times, so does the sky. Sharkies. Oh, good. You did get a copy. Great. Could look it up, but one of us is crocheting and the other is holding the book. Very nice. Happy Nightmares is basically a continent away, but in the same country. In Montreal. Ah. Bonjour. We have a big country, says Farmmouse. Sharkies say, I'm appropriately crocheting granny squares. Nice. Salut. Alright, even the land at times seems alive. At times, so does the sky. The storm was really giving it everything it had. This was its big chance. It had spent years hanging around the provinces, putting in some useful work as a squall, building up experience, making contacts, occasionally leaping out on unsuspecting shepherds, or blasting quite small oak trees. Now, an opening in the weather had given it an opportunity to strut its hour, and it was building up its role in the hope of being spotted by one of the big climates. It was a good storm. There was quite effective projection and passion there, and critics agreed that if it would only learn to control its thunder, it would be, in years to come, a storm to watch. The woods roared their applause and were full of mists and flying leaves. Books, Brews, and Booze is feeding a black cat. So can we all agree that that was an amazing description of a storm? On nights such as these, the gods, as has already been pointed out, play games other than chess with the fates of mortals and the thrones of kings. Very important to clarify. They play games other than chess. It is important to remember that they always cheat, right up to the end. And a coach came hurtling along the rough forest track, jerking violently as the wheels bounced off tree roots. The driver lashed at the team, the desperate crack of his whip providing a rather neat counterpoint to the crash of the tempest overhead. Behind, only a little way behind, and getting closer, were 3 hooded riders. On nights such as this, evil deeds are done. And good deeds, of course, but mostly evil on the whole. Let's see. Sharkies also have a black cat, and his name is fittingly is Stormy. I was just thinking that was very appropriate. Whereas Books, Brews, and Booze are Toothless and Midnight, and then also 4 other cats. 6 cats! That's a lot of cats! Like Farmo says, that is many cats. I mean, I guess it's, all in perspective. Depending on who you talk to, that might not be very many cats. Sharky say, quite the clouder. How many cats in a clouder? 2 if you cook it right. I'm sorry. I take it back. I'm sorry. Robot Kyo, I'll remember that joke. Evil. Robot Kyo was thinking that. Oh no, frowny face from Farmos. Okay, mostly evil on the whole. Toothless Ghosty, Midnight Precious, Bootsy, and Tortellini. That is Tortellini, right? Wow. Happy Nightmares has a huge floof named Tweak. Had a huge floof named Tweak. I miss him, but I don't feel like he's far. Unfollow. No! It's just a joke. I would never. I'm sorry. I take it back. I rescind the joke. Alright, continuing. On nights such as this, witches are abroad. Well, not actually abroad. They don't like the food, and you can't trust the water, and the shamans always hog the deck chairs. But there was a full moon breasting the ragged clouds, and the rushing air was full of whispers and a very broad hint of magic. Ramos has given me strike 1. Oh no, right. In the clearing, in their clearing above the forest, the witches spoke thus. I'm babysitting on Tuesday, said the one with no hat, but a thatch of white curls so thick she might have been wearing a helmet. For our Jason's youngest. I can manage Friday. Hurry up with the tea, love. I'm that parched. The junior member of the trio gave a sigh and ladled some boiling water out of the cauldron into the teapot. Some boiling water. The third witch patted her hand in a kindly fashion. You said it quite well, she said. Just a bit more work on the screeching. Ain't that right, Nanny Og? Very useful screeching, I thought, said Nanny Og hurriedly. And I can see Goody Whemper, may she rest in peace, gave you a lot of help with the squint. The may she rest in peace was all one word if it didn't come out quite right. I was kind of trying to parse it as I was reading it. It's a good squint, said Granny Weatherwax. The junior witch, whose name was Magrat Garlic, Magrat, not Margit, Magrat. Magrat Garlic relaxed considerably. She held Granny Weatherwax in awe. It was known throughout the Ramtop Mountains that Miss Weatherwax did not approve of anything very much. If she said it was a good squint, then Magrat's eyes were probably staring up her own nostrils. Minicake's back to normal now. Hooray! You did it! Unlike wizards, who like nothing better than a complicated hierarchy, witches don't go in much for the structured approach to career progression. It's up to each individual witch to take on a girl to hand the area over to when she dies. Witches are not by nature gregarious, at least with other witches, and they certainly don't have leaders. Granny Weatherwax was the most highly regarded of the leaders they didn't have. Magrat's hands shook slightly as they made the tea. Of course, it was all very gratifying, but it was a bit nerve-wracking to start one's working life as village witch between Granny and, on the other side of the forest, Nanny Og. It had been her idea to form a local coven. She felt it was more, well, a cult. To her amazement, the other two had agreed, or, at least, hadn't disagreed much. An oven? Nanny Og had said. What did we want to join an oven for? She means a coven, Githa, Granny Weatherwax had explained. You know, like in the old days, a meeting. A knees up? said Nanny Og hopefully. No dancing, Granny had warned. I don't hold with dancing, or singing, or getting overexcited, or all that messing about with ointments and similar. Does you good to get out, said Nanny happily. Magrat had been disappointed about the dancing, and was relieved that she hadn't ventured one or two other ideas that had been on her mind. She fumbled in the packet she had brought with her. It was her first Sabbat. Am I pronouncing that right? S-A-B-B-A-T? And she was determined to do it right. Would anyone care for a scone? She said. Granny looked hard at hers before she bit. Magrat had baked bat designs on it. They had little eyes made of currants. Farmo says fantastic names. Githa Og, Magrat Garlic. Great witch names. How are the voices so far? I'm taking taking a stab at... I'm not sure what exactly is right for Magrat, but I figure Granny probably sounds a bit more stern and Nanny a little more whimsical. Ravocchio's giving me a thumbs up. Farmo says, I must make bat scones. Scones? Scones? Farmos thinks Nanny Oggs is pretty good. I need some work. Alright. This is my first time doing these, so I'm sure we will settle into a groove with them in a little bit of time. The coach crashed through the trees at the forest edge, ran on 2 wheels for a few seconds as it hit a stone, righted itself against all the laws of balance, and rumbled on. But it was going slower now. The slope was dragging at it. The coachman, standing upright in the manner of a charioteer, pushed his hair out of his eyes and peered through the murk. No one lived up here in the lap of the Ramtops themselves, but there was a light ahead. By all that was merciful, there was a light there. An arrow buried itself in the coach roof behind him. Meanwhile, King Verence, monarch of Lancre, Lancre? L-A-N-C-R-E. Lancre? Farmo says Lancre. Alright, Lancre. Was making a discovery. Like most people at any rate below the age of 60 or so, Verence hadn't exercised his mind much about what happened to you when you died. Like most people since the dawn of time, he assumed it all somehow worked out all right in the end. And, like most people since the dawn of time, he was now dead. Accurate. That's accurate. Like most people since the dawn of time. Yep. Sharky say, yes, turn me out. Tell me how they turn out. I'm assuming the scones. I'd love to try it too. Been baking the same biscuits since grade 11. They're good, but I could use another good standby. That would make a great gravestone. Like most people since the dawn of time, now dead. He was, in fact, lying at the bottom of one of his own stairways in Lancre Castle, with a dagger in his back. He sat up, and was surprised to find that while someone he was certainly inclined to think of as himself was sitting up, something very much like his body remained lying on the floor. It was a pretty good body, incidentally, now he came to see it from outside for the first time. He had always been quite attached to it, although, he had to admit, this did not now seem to be the case. It was big and well-muscled. He'd looked after it. He'd allowed it a mustache and long flowing locks. He'd seen it got plenty of healthy outdoor exercise and lots of red meat. Now, just when a body would have been useful, it had let him down. Or out. On top of that, he had to come to terms with the tall, thin figure standing beside him. Most of it was hidden in a hooded black robe. Sorry, in a hooded black robe. But, The one arm which extended from the folds to grip a large scythe was made of bone. When one is dead, there are things one instinctively recognizes. Hallo. Hallo. Barents drew himself up to his full height, or what would have been his full height if that part of him which the word height could have been applied was not lying stiff on the floor and facing a future in which only the word depth could be appropriate. I am a king, mark you, he said. Was, your majesty. What? Barents barked. I said was. It's called the past tense. You'll soon get used to it. The tall figure tapped its calcareous fingers on the scythe's handle. It was obviously upset about something. If it came to that, Barents thought, so am I. But the various broad hints available in his present circumstances were breaking through even the mad brain stupidity that made up most of his character. And it was dawning on him that whatever kingdom he might currently be in, he wasn't king of it. Are you Death, fellow? He ventured. I have many names. Which one are you using at present? Said Barents, with a shade more deference. There were people milling around them. In fact, quite a few people were milling through them, like ghosts. Oh, so it was Felmet, the king added vaguely, looking at the figure lurking with obscene delight at the top of the stairs. My father said I should never let him get behind me. Why don't I feel angry? Glands, that said Death shortly. That was glands. Glands, said Death shortly. Adrenaline and so forth. And emotions. You don't have them. All you have now is thought. The tall figure appeared to reach a decision. Oh boy, I'm missing a lot of stuff here. Let's see. Pharma says the Discworld Wiki agrees with your pronunciation. Robokio says those biscuits may be a little burnt by now. because Sharky's been making them since grade 11. I gotcha. Sharky say biscotti means twice baked. Try infiniscotti. Should we be pronouncing it bi-Scotty, like biannual? I guess that makes sense. Biscotti means twice baked. I've always kind of thought of it as like biscuit and not by something. I learned something today. Thank you. Minicake says Grim Reaper. Pharma says, yep, death. Yes, for what it's worth, anytime Death speaks in just about anything that Sir Terry Pratchett is involved in the writing in, Death always speaks in all capitals and no quotation marks. Let's see if I can get it to focus, but if we look over here, you can see an example. If it'll focus. It may not. There we go. So you can see, I am a king, mark you, was your majesty. So that's a signifier. It's the same in Good Omens, which is not part of Discworld, but which Sir Terry was one of the authors on. Sir Terry and Neil Gaiman. Or Gaiman. Neil Gaiman. Sharkies say, kind of hard not to read it as, I have many names. Which one are you using at present? Glands. Robakio says, hard to talk in caps lock when it's not yelling. All right. The tall figure appeared to reach a decision. "This is very irregular," he went on, apparently to himself. "However, who am I to argue?" "Who indeed?" "What?" "I said, who indeed?" "Shut up!" Death stood with his skull on one side, as though listening to some inner voice. As his hood fell away, the late king noticed that Death resembled a polished skeleton in every way but one. His eye sockets glowed sky blue. I think I've seen that representation, but I didn't particularly remember that detail. But I've seen that in illustrations and the like. Death's been on a cover or two, I think. Verence wasn't frightened, however. Not simply because it is difficult to be in fear of anything when the bits you need to be frightened with are curdling several yards away, but because he had never really been frightened of anything in his life, and wasn't going to start now. This was partly because he didn't have the imagination, but he was also one of those rare individuals who are totally focused in time. Most people aren't. They live their lives as a sort of temporal blur around the point where their body actually is, anticipating the future or holding on to the past. They're usually so busy thinking about what happens next that the only time they ever find out what is happening now is when they come to look back on it. Most people are like this. They learn how to fear because they can actually tell, down at the subconscious level, what is going to happen next. It's already happening to them. But Verence had always lived only for the present. Until now, anyway. Death sighed. Sharky say Terry Pratchett seems to have low expectations of those without imagination. Even the gods, bear in mind. The gods earlier in this book were described as not having the imagination. And Farmos is saying Death has his own Terry Pratchett series as well. Yeah. Yeah, those are entertaining. You meet some fun characters. Death sighed. "I suppose no one mentioned anything to you?" he hazarded. "Say again." "No premonitions? Strange dreams? Mad old soothsayers shouting things at you in the street?" "About what? Dying?" "No, I suppose not. It would be too much to expect," said Death sourly. "They leave it all to me." "Who do?" "You do," said Verence, mystified. Sharky say, "Like Martier." Yes, and Farmo said, "Our last book had a mad soothsayer. Yeah, shouting things in the street. Like Martier, yeah." Although, that was 2 books ago. Martier was 2 books ago. That was at the end of Pawn of Prophecy. Minicake said, "We said you do" at the same time. Nice. It's the only response you can have to hoodoo, right? Happy Nightmare says, "Funny to hear Death hazarding something." Yeah, Death has a bit of a personality. "They leave it all to me." "Hoodoo?" said Verence, mystified. "Fate, destiny, all the rest of them." Death laid a hand on the king's shoulder. "The fact is, I'm afraid, you're due to become a ghost." "Oh." He looked down at his body, which seemed solid enough. Then someone walked through him. "Don't let it upset you. Verence watched his own stiff corpse being carried reverentially from the hall. "I'll try," he said. "Good man." "I don't think I will be up to all that business with the white sheets and the chains, though," he said. "Do I have to walk around moaning and screaming?" Death shrugged. "Do you want to?" he said. "No." "Then I shouldn't bother if I were you." Death pulled an hourglass from the recesses of his dark robe and inspected it closely. "And now I really must be going," he said. He turned on his heel, put the scythe over his shoulder, and started to walk out of the hall through the wall. "I say, just hold on there!" shouted Verence, running after him. Death didn't look back. Verence followed him through the wall. It was like walking through fog. "Is that all?" he demanded. "I mean, how long will I be a ghost? Why am I a ghost? You can't just leave me like this." He halted and raised an imperious, slightly transparent finger. "Stop! I command you!" Death shook his head gloomily and stepped through the next wall. The king hurried after him with as much dignity as he could still muster, and found Death fiddling with the girths of a large white horse standing on the battlements. It was wearing a nose-bag. "You can't leave me like this," he repeated in the face of the evidence. Death turned to him. "I can," he said. "You're undead, you see. Ghosts inhabit a world between the living and the dead. It's not my responsibility." He patted the king on the shoulder. "Don't worry," he said. "It won't be forever." "Good." "It may seem like forever." "How long will it really be?" "Until you have fulfilled your destiny, I assume." "And how will I know what my destiny is?" said the king desperately. "Can't help there. I'm sorry." "Well, how can I find out?" "These things generally become apparent, I understand," said Death, and swung himself into the saddle. "And until then I have to haunt this place." King Verence stared around at the drafty battlements. "All alone, I suppose. Won't anyone be able to see me?" "Oh, the psychically inclined, close relatives, and cats, of course." "I hate cats." Death's face became a little stiffer, if that were possible. The blue glow in his eye sockets flickered red for an instant. "I see," he said. The tone suggested that Death was too good for cat haters. "You like great big dogs, I imagine." "As a matter of fact, I do." The king stared gloomily at the dawn. His dogs. He'd really miss his dogs. And it looked like such a good hunting day. He wondered if ghosts hunted. Almost certainly not, he imagined. Or ate, or drank either for that matter. And that was really depressing. He liked a big noisy banquet and had quaffed, asterisk, many a pint of good ale. And bad ale, come to that. All right, let's go to the footnote. Footnote. Quaffing is like drinking, but you spill more. End of footnote. He'd never been able to tell the difference till the following morning, usually, between good ale and bad ale. He kicked despondently at a stone, and noted gloomily that his foot went right through it. No hunting, drinking, carousing, no wassailing, no hawking. Wassailing, you don't see that one very often. Mini Cake says, as a non-cat lover, I feel attacked. Oh no, Mini Cake. We had a bit of a cat discussion earlier. You are in the company of many a cat lover here tonight. I don't have any cats at the moment, but I grew up with many cats. I like all animals, just about. Tuck my hair back a bit. Looks a little weird poking out the side. Didn't work at all. It's too stubborn. I can put the hood down for now. Happy Nightmare says, can confirm. Have had many cats that stare at ghosts. Farmos likes all animals except fish. Mini Cake says, cats are amazing. I just won't own one. That's fair. And Books coming in. Books, Brews, and Booze coming in with the cat emojis. Ah, yes. What a normal group of cats. Everyone belongs there. All very normal cats there. And some of the creepier insects. Are insects animals? Do they count? Can't really see him right now, but Pepper is all curled up and napping in his bed over here. Maybe I should move it over to this side. Although I think he's used to it where it is. And a surprise raccoon. No raccoons here. All normal cats just coming in for their regular cat feeding time where they will get their normal cat food. An extra serving for the last one, who is also a normal cat. I've got puppy hair in my head. What the? Is that a bit of a feather from my hat? What is that? Excuse me for a moment while I groom myself. Where? What? Get out of there. Where is it? Yeah. Feather remnants from the hat. I'll get them later. Yeah, I'll get them later. There. Excuse me. Time for a small fit. Books, Brews, and Boo says, I pretty much love them all. I shall rescue you from all insects. Oh, that's quite the offer. One of those cats was just born different, says Mini Cake. Sharky's confirmed. Insects are a part of Kingdom Animalia, so yes. Alright. I've had a few raccoon encounters in my day. Got some good raccoon stories. Lost a pen in your hair the other day. I've been there. Small fit. Okay, where was I? Where, in fact, was I? We were talking about... Ah, yes. Kicking despondently at... no wassailing, no hawking. That's where I ended. It was dawning on him that the pleasures of the flesh were pretty sparse without the flesh. Suddenly, life wasn't worth living. The fact that he wasn't living it didn't cheer him up at all. Some people like to be ghosts, said Death. Said Varence gloomily. It's not such a wrench, I assume. They can see how their descendants get on. Sorry, is something the matter? But Varence had vanished into the wall. Don't mind me, will you? Said Death peevishly. He looked around him with a gaze that could see through time and space and the souls of men, and noted a landslide in distant Klatch, a hurricane in Hawandaland, and a plague in Hergen. Busy, busy, he muttered, and spurred his horse into the sky. Varence ran through the walls of his own castle. His feet barely touched the ground. In fact, the unevenness of the floor meant that at times they didn't touch the ground at all. As a king, he was used to treating servants as if they were not there, and running through them as a ghost was almost the same. The only difference was that they didn't stand aside. Verence reached the nursery, saw the broken door, the trailed sheets, heard the hoofbeats. He reached the window, saw his own horse go full tilt through the open gateway in the shafts of the coach. A few seconds later, 3 horsemen followed it. The sound of hooves echoed for a moment on the cobbles and died away. The king thumped the sill, his fist going several inches into the stone. Then he pushed his way out into the air, disdaining to notice the drop, and half flew, half ran down across the courtyard and into the stables. It took him a mere 20 seconds to learn that, to the great many things a ghost cannot do, should be added the mounting of a horse. He did succeed in getting into the saddle, or at least in straddling the air just above it, but when the horse finally bolted, terrified beyond belief by the mysterious things happening behind its ears, Verence was left sitting astride 5 feet of fresh air. He tried to run, and got about as far as the gateway before the air around him thickened to the consistency of tar. "You can't," said a sad, old voice behind him. "You have to stay where you were killed. That's what haunting means. Take it from me. I know." Mysterious. The chat is continuing on about various animals. Farmo says, "Elephants. Love elephants. Don't want a full-grown one on me." I see. Happy Nightmares. Yep, don't like the bitey ones on me. I try not to kill them, though. Gotta release a trapped ant. Farmo says, "King's having a hard time with the whole ghost concept there." You know, I imagine I would probably have the same difficulties, or similar ones. There are things you do out of habit, right? Running down to the stables and jumping on the horse is probably not one of my habits in particular. But, you know, the rest of it I can imagine. Kicking at things, trying to hit things. Sharky say, "Gotta test the limits anyway." Yeah, that's true. Yeah, eventually you gotta push and see how far you're allowed to go. Now, this is a Terry Pratchett book, and like many Terry Pratchett books, there are not chapters specifically. There are occasionally breaks. For instance, here we've got a set of asterisks? I don't know. What's the plural of asterisks? At the bottom of the page here, denoting kind of a scene break. Ellipses? No, they're asterisks. They're specifically crossed lines. They're not dots. I mean, it is kind of an ellipsis in that it's 3 of them, sort of, and they're circular-ish, but asterisks? I think it's asterisks. Asterisks, not asterisks. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Probably just asterisks. Maybe I was overcomplicating it, because it's not plural in the first place. I don't know why asterisks seemed logical to me. Pharma says, "I don't feel like I'd try to use a car, though, as an example." Yeah, that's fair. Sharky say, "You mean you don't have a riding habit?" I try to pull it down. I don't know if that joke made any sense at all. Robot Kyo says, "Maybe 3 asterisks are an obelix." Asterisk, and is it obelix? Anyways, wow. Good job, but also boo. Um, we've been at this for less than an hour, so I think I'll keep going into the next scene. Does that sound good? I'll probably try to wrap up within the next 20 minutes-ish. So I'll read for a little while longer, though. All right. Granny Weatherwax paused with a second scone halfway to her mouth. "Something comes," she said. "Can you tell by the pricking of your thumbs?" said Magrat earnestly. Magrat had learned a lot about witchcraft from books. "The pricking of my ears," said Granny. She raised her eyebrows at Nanny Ogg. Old Goody Whemper had been an excellent witch in her way, but far too fanciful. Too many flowers and romantic notions and such. The occasional flash of lightning showed the moorland stretching down to the forest, but the rain on the warm summer earth had filled the air with mist wraiths. "Hoofbeats," said Nanny Ogg. "No one would come up here this time of night." Magrat peered around timidly. He jumped out of his... Oh, hello. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you. What a good puppy. Was your bed getting too warm and you needed to stretch out a little more? Gotta move that bag out of your way. Everybody noticed puppy before I did. All right. Magrat peered around timidly. Here and there on the moor were huge standing stones, their origins lost in time, which were said to lead mobile and private lives of their own. She shivered. "What's to be afraid of?" she managed. "Us," said Granny Weatherwax, smugly. That's a great attitude, isn't it? There's no need to be afraid in the dark if you're the scary one. The hoofbeats neared, slowed, and then the coach rattled between the furze bushes, its horses hanging in their harnesses. I looked this up last week. A furze bush is the same as a gorse bush, apparently. Gorse and furze. Two kind of silly names for the same bush. The coach rattled between the furze bushes, its horses hanging in their harnesses. The driver leaped down, ran around to the door, pulled a large bundle from inside, and dashed toward the trio. He was halfway across the damp peat when he stopped and stared at Granny Weatherwax with a look of horror. "It's all right," she whispered, and the whisper cut through the grumbling of the storm as clearly as a bell. She took a few steps forward, and a convenient lightning flash allowed her to look directly into the man's eyes. They had the peculiarity of focus that told those who had the know, capital K-N-O-W, that he was no longer looking at anything in this world. With a final, jerking movement, he thrust the bundle into Granny's arms and toppled forward, the feathers of a crossbow bolt sticking out of his back. 3 figures moved into the firelight. Granny looked up into another pair of eyes, which were as chilly as the slopes of hell. Their owner threw his crossbow aside. There was a glimpse of chainmail under his sodden cloak as he drew his sword. He didn't flourish it. The eyes that didn't leave Granny's face weren't the eyes of one who bothers about flourishing things. They were the eyes of one who knows exactly what swords are for. He reached out his hand. "You will give it to me," he said. Granny twitched aside the blanket in her arms and looked down at a small face, wrapped in sleep. She looked up. "No," she said on general principles. The soldier glanced from her to Magrat and Nanny Ogg, who were as still as the standing stones of the moor. "You are witches?" he said. Granny nodded. Lightning skewered down from the sky, and a bush 100 yards away blossomed into fire. The two soldiers behind the man muttered something, but he smiled and raised a mailed hand. "Does the skin of witches turn aside steel?" he said. "Not that I'm aware," said Granny levelly. "You could give it a try." Wow. Farmos giving us a definition of gorse. A spiny, perennial, evergreen shrub. It thrives in sunny clearings with dry, infertile soil such as sandy or rocky areas, roadsides, and fields. Furze, gorse, ulex, or whin. Oh. Minicake says, "Feisty Granny Witch." Minicake likes her. Oh yes, Granny is an amazing character. You could give it a try. One of the soldiers stepped forward and touched the man's arm gingerly. "Sir, with respect, sir, it's not a good idea." "Be silent. But it's terrible bad luck to—" "Must I ask you again?" "Sir," said the man. His eyes caught Granny's for a moment and reflected hopeless terror. The leader grinned at Granny, who hadn't moved a muscle. "Your peasant magic is for fools, Mother of the Night. I can strike you down where you stand." "Then strike, man," said Granny, looking over his shoulder. "If your heart tells you, strike as hard as you dare." The man raised his sword. Lightning speared down again and split a stone a few yards away, filling the air with smoke and the stink of burnt silicon. "Missed," he said smugly, and Granny saw his muscles tense as he prepared to bring the sword down. A look of extreme puzzlement crossed his face. He tilted his head sideways and opened his mouth, as if trying to come to terms with a new idea. His sword dropped out of his hand and landed point downward in the peat. Then he gave a sigh and folded up, very gently, collapsing in a heap at Granny's feet. She gave him a gentle prod with her toe. "Perhaps you weren't aware of what I was aiming at," she whispered. "Mother of the Night, indeed." The soldier, who had tried to restrain the man, stared in horror at the bloody dagger in his hand and backed away. I couldn't let... He shouldn't have... It's not right to..." he stuttered. "Are you from around these parts, young man?" said Granny. He dropped to his knees. "Mad Wolf, ma'am," he said. He stared back at the fallen captain. "They'll kill me now," he wailed. "But you did what you thought was right," said Granny. "I didn't become a soldier for this. Not to go around killing people. Okay. I can accept that. If there are no wars going on, I can accept that. Exactly right. If I was you, I'd become a sailor, said Granny thoughtfully. Yes, a nautical career. I should start as soon as possible. Now, in fact. Run off, man. Run off to sea where there are no tracks. You will have a long and successful life, I promise. She looked thoughtful for a moment and added, At least, longer than it's likely to be if you hang around here. Books, Brews and Booze saying, Get 'em, Granny. Sharky say, These aren't the droids you're looking for. Just parades and medals, I suppose. Farmo says, And marching. Lots of long walks in the brisk air. Ghost Wander 1 says, Hello. Hi. We are reading Wyrd Sisters by Sir Terry Pratchett. We're pretty close to the beginning of the book. I'm going to read for another 5 or 10 minutes or so. But yeah, welcome. I'm going to continue this bit. I hope you don't mind. He pulled himself upward, gave her a look compounded of gratitude and awe, and ran off into the mist. And now perhaps someone will tell us what this is all about, said Granny, turning to the third man. To where the third man had been, there was the distant drumming of hoofs on the turf, and then silence. Nanny Ogg hobbled forward. I could catch him, she said. What do you think? Granny shook her head. You here to unwind and relax to some reading? Oh, okay, well, welcome. Granny shook her head. She sat down on a rock and looked at the child in her arms. It was a boy, no more than 2 years old, and quite naked under the blanket. She rocked him vaguely and stared at nothing. Nanny Ogg examined the 2 corpses with the air of one for whom laying out holds no fears. Perhaps they were bandits, said Magrat tremulously. Nanny shook her head. A strange thing, she said. They both wear this same badge. 2 bears on a black and gold shield. Anyone know what that means? It's the badge of King Verence, said Magrat. Who's he? Said Granny Weatherwax. He rules this country, said Magrat. Oh, that king, said Granny, as if the matter was hardly worth noting. Soldiers fighting one another? Doesn't make sense, said Nanny Ogg. Magrat, you have a look in the coach. The youngest witch poked around inside the bodywork and came back with a sack. She upended it, and something thudded onto the turf. The storm had rumbled off to the other side of the mountain now, and the watery moon shed a thin gruel of light over the damp moorland. It also gleamed off what was, without any doubt, an extremely important crown. It's a crown, said Magrat. It's got all spiky bits on it. Oh, dear, said Granny. The child gurgled in its sleep. Granny Weatherwax didn't hold with looking at the future, but now she could feel the future looking at her. She didn't like its expression at all. I think that's a good place to stop. I could go a little further, but I feel like that's just such a good ending point. And, Hmm. There's another break in like 2 pages, so why don't we get to that? It's, yeah, that's not that much further, so I feel like that'll be good. King Verence was looking at the past, and had formed pretty much the same view. "You can see me," he said. "Oh, yes. Quite clearly, in fact," said the newcomer. Verence's brows knotted. Being a ghost seemed to require considerably more mental effort than being alive. He'd managed quite well for 40 years without having to think more than once or twice a day, and now he was doing it all the time. "Ah," he said, "you're a ghost too. Well spotted." "It was the head under your arm," said Verence, pleased with himself. "That gave me a clue." "Does it bother you? I can put it back on if it bothers you," said the old ghost helpfully. He extended his free hand. "Pleased to meet you. I'm Champot, King of Lancre." "Verence, likewise." I like that. He peered down at the old king's features and added, "Don't seem to recall seeing your picture in the long gallery." "Oh, all that was after my time," said Champot dismissively. Minnicake says, "Such a considerate ghost." Farmo says, "Champot, not the kingliest name." Chucky say, "Courtly manners and such." Ah, yes. "How long have you been here, then?" Champot reached down and rubbed his nose. Picturing that. Head under arm. Farmos feels like Champot is more of a butler's name. Champot reached down and rubbed his nose. "About 1,000 years," he said, his voice tinged with pride. "Man and ghost." 1,000 years? I built this place, in fact. Just got it nicely decorated when my nephew cut my head off while I was asleep. I can't tell you how much that upset me." "But 1,000 years?" Verence repeated weakly. Champot took his arm. "It's not that bad," he confided, as he led the unresisting king across the courtyard. "Better than being alive in many ways." "They must be bloody strange ways, then," snapped Verence. "I liked being alive." Champot grinned reassuringly. "You'll soon get used to it," he said. "I don't want to get used to it." "You've got a strong morphogenic field," said Champot. "I can tell. I look for these things. Yes, very strong, I should say." "What's that?" "I was never very good with words, you know," said Champot. "I always found it easier to hit people with something. But I gather it all boils down to how alive you were. When you were alive, I mean. There's something called—" He paused. "Animal vitality. Yes, that was it. Animal vitality. The more you had, the more you stay yourself, as it were, if you're a ghost. I expect you were 100% alive when you were alive," he added. Minnicake says, "Would he flip his head when he needed to sneeze?" Picture him taking it and being like, "Achoo." Do ghosts sneeze? I think the physicality, right? Your nose isn't going to get itchy. Maybe just as a habit. Sharkies say it reminds me of the actions Douglas Adams uses to describe Zaphod's idle actions with 2 heads and 3 arms. Norma says, unless it does get itchy, who knows? It's like phantom limb syndrome, except it's phantom everything. It's just phantom. Carrying on. Despite himself, Verence felt flattered. I tried to keep myself busy, he said. They had strolled through the wall into the great hall, which was now empty. The sight of the trestle tables triggered an automatic reaction in the king. How do we go about getting breakfast? He said. Champot's head looked surprised. We don't, he said. We're ghosts. But I'm hungry. You're not, you know. It's just your imagination. Farmo says, I don't want to be a ghost. I like eating food. Yeah, I would definitely miss food. That would be a big one. And I mean, depending on exactly how much interaction with the physicality you're allowed, like, I wouldn't be able to read books. You'd only be able to watch what somebody else put on TV. Minicake says, Phantom Hunger too, it seems. Sharky say, that's what we tell our kids when they want second dessert. Food tastes good. I see. Farmo says, don't ever tell them about the dessert stomach. The secret stomach. There was a clattering from the kitchens. The cooks were already up and, in the absence of any other instructions, were preparing the castle's normal breakfast menu. Familiar smells were wafting up from the dark archway that led to the kitchens. Verence sniffed. So ghosts have a sense of smell still, apparently? That's something. Books, Brews, and Booze has a plan for that. I hope to come back as a ghost, and I'm going to write it into my will that my nieces have to read out loud to me. Oh, that's nice. And if they don't, I'll start haunting them at inopportune times. That's less nice. Be sure to leave instructions about what kind of genre you like, what authors, if there's any favorites. Puppy! Whoa. I'll mute that for just a moment. Sorry about that. Getting some chicken delivered, and that's probably what that is. Books, Brews, and Boo says, so I can be a nice ghost auntie or an evil one. Sharky say, perhaps you could read every book as a ghost. You could slide into the pages and just settle where the focus lies on the right page. Yeah, that's a question of just how capable as a ghost are you? Can you read a book that is shut? First of all, I feel like that would require some precision. And second of all, there's no light. Does a ghost see in the dark? Does a ghost have dark vision? And does dark vision apply if the pages are pressed against each other? I don't know. It's complicated. Ghost auntie floats into the room. Hey, heard you were getting cozy with your boyfriend. Y'all wearing protection? Need some tips? Wow. Oh, yeah, that would get them. See, the trick is Because you can't push them too far, because what if they go and get an exorcist? So I feel like you need to balance it to just the right level of haunting, where it's more convenient for them to just read to you than to go hire someone to get rid of you entirely. You don't want to make them angry. I don't know. It's difficult. Chucky say, though, I suppose there's no light in a shut book. Yeah. So can ghosts... Do ghosts have that capability, I wonder? Alright. I'm just going to finish up here. Varence sniffed. Sausages, he said dreamily. Bacon. Eggs. Smoked fish. He stared at Champot. Black pudding, he whispered. You haven't actually got a stomach, the old ghost pointed out. It's all in the mind. Just force of habit. You just think you're hungry. I think I'm ravenous. Yes, but you can't actually touch anything, you see, Champot explained gently. Nothing at all. Varence lowered himself gently onto a bench so that he did not drift through it, and sank his head in his hands. He'd heard that death could be bad. He just hadn't realized how bad. He wanted revenge. He wanted to get out of this suddenly horrible castle to find his son. But he was even more terrified to find that what he really wanted, right now, was a plate of kidneys. Bookmarks in. An exorcist they wouldn't dare. Minicake says, I'd float protection over to them. Pharma says, Ghost Auntie's got your back. Sharkies say, the author, Sue Grafton, wrote a mystery series that are all named A for blank, B for whatever, etc., but died after writing Y for, so the series was never finished. Apparently she put in her will that if anyone finished the series on her behalf, she'd haunt them. Nice. I kind of wish a little bit that Frank Herbert had put something in his series to the same effect. To be fair, I've never actually read any of his son's takes on Dune, on the Dune universe, but I haven't heard good things. Book Spurs and Boo says, at Minicake, brilliant, and if they don't use it, threaten to put it on yourself. You would be a very bold ghost. Pharma says, so long as you read. So, what does everyone think of the first, how much did we read? The first 16 pages of Wyrd Sisters. Having a good time so far? We're just getting started. That's 16 out of 264 and a bit. We've been introduced to a few of the primary characters. Sharky say, I love the witches so much. Bookspurs and Boo says, already love it more than when I first read it. Yeah, you had mentioned you'd read it before, but you didn't finish it. You got like 50 pages from the end, something like that. Farmos always enjoys a good trope being put on its head story, a subversion. Minikik says, I'm in love with it, honestly. First book I was able to catch the beginning of. Yeah, it's nice being there for the beginning of a story. It's awkward coming in near the end. I can't do it very well myself. I can't read starting from the second book in a series or something like that. I need to start at the beginning. But that has led to problems sometimes where I just don't read a particular series at all. book Sprues and Booze. Didn't finish it and can't remember anything of it. Sharkies won't give any spoilers, but I'm mentally giggling at the conversation that leads to the baby's name. Oh boy. Alright, well, I'm glad that everyone's having fun so far. I definitely need to iron out a few of the voices. I've got the idea, I think, of what I want most of the characters that we've come across so far to sound like, but I haven't quite got the trick of exactly, like I haven't gotten it exactly right yet, I don't think. Because I know Granny needs to sound a little more stern, no nonsense. And Nanny much less so, and Megret I guess is younger, but I don't know how often she's trying to do the witchy voice. My Dobby voice? What's my Dobby voice? Have I done? Oh, Nobby. Oh, okay. I was like, I don't really talk about that series here very much. Nobby. Nobby makes much more sense. So you think that Nanny should be talking out the corner of her mouth? Something like that. Farmhouse thinks Granny is pretty good, and apparently nobody likes my current Nanny Og. Alright, I'll try this one. More feminine Nobby. Okay. I hadn't really thought to connect those two in particular. Magret was fine though? Okay. Alright, well, I have a box of Korean fried chicken waiting for me that is calling my name. Perfect Granny voice. Farmo says that puppy is saying the same thing. So I'm gonna go eat that. He's put a paw on me. Oh. But I'll see everybody hopefully on Friday. Yeah, I don't think there's anything that should be getting in the way of the Friday stream. Tomorrow, so everyone knows, is Farmhouse's birthday. Say happy birthday, everybody. Wish Farmhouse a happy birthday. That's right. I went there. Happy birthday to you. Me and Kate can't wait for Friday. Enjoy the chicken. Thanks. No. Chat's filling up with happy birthdays for Farmhouse. Oh, and is that a unicorn? I don't know, just a bunny with a hat. Nice. Yeah. And you smell like 1, 2. Huh? All right. Whoop. Pressed the wrong button there. Let's see. I'm gonna raid out to our friend Slightly Stupid Bear, who's currently playing Deep Rock Galactic. So if anyone wants to stick around and see space dwarves mining. But I hope everybody has enjoyed. It seems like everyone had a pretty good time. I'll work on things on Friday, and I will see you then. So 7 p.m. Pacific time, same time as always. Those cats. Oh, look at all those cats. Have a great evening, everyone. Have a good night's sleep and a good rest of your week. And I'll see you Friday night. Bye.